hearing about this K-shaped economy, that it's officially dead. Listen.
So we are starting to see, I got sick of hearing about this K-shaped economy. I can say here definitively, the K-shaped economy is over.
Oh, it's over. All right, he announced it on CNBC, so it's officially over. Dr. Chris Martenson is the founder of peakprosperity.com. He looks at all of these trends. He's been studying them for years and one of the keenest observers of all of this. Chris, great to have you back on the show. Welcome back.
Thank you, Clayton. Natalie, so great to be back here with both of you. Lots to discuss today.
Yeah, our pleasure to have you. So, first of all, just maybe on the Scott Benson point of this K-shaped economy, is he right? Is it officially dead?
Yeah, he's absolutely right, because it's now an I-shaped economy. There's this little line where we all inhabit, and there's this little dot of elites lording over all of us, I guess.
Right, so the K-shape has now just turned into something bigger for the elites have made such a small impact, and now the rest of us are dealing with, because the numbers out today on credit card delinquencies, car loan delinquencies, and the next foreclosures, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, Washington's so out of touch, and I think Scott Bessent exemplifies that with sort of his smugness. Trump obviously out of touch. That all of these people who are hanging out around that bubble of Washington, D.C., I'm sure, Trump said, we're doing great, the economy's doing great, but who's in that we? If you're a centimillionaire, it's obviously the best of times, but it's also the worst of times. If you're an average person, inflation is absolutely eating everybody's lunch. And we know that wages are not keeping up with inflation, but that's inflation as they've told it to us, which we all know it's a pretty big lie. So, what do I say? Listen, everybody knows the truth already. We're struggling. People are struggling with this. If you go out to eat, if you just try and buy a burrito, if you have to pay an insurance bill, if you just have to replace a condenser on an HVAC unit, you know the reality, which is that inflation is rampaging through this economy right now.
And so the numbers are 3.4%. That we've seen numbers in the 3 and 4%. That's
Shalom. First thing and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory and honor is due to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Harakakwadash. Double honors to the elders, the apostles, the great millstone. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect, the noise in the gospel broad, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another economy update through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. This is from Redacted. They give some pretty legitimate information, and a lot of times they come with different forecasters and investigative journalists and insiders that give the real skimmy on what's happening in the world and the economy, as we're not getting from the mainstream narrative. This dude Trump say that this is the best the economy has ever been, which is cap, because like I did the video 2 days ago on Shake Shack. You paying $12 for a hamburger and no sides or a drink with it, then it's safe to say that your economy is not doing very well. And the fact that you overcharging people for fast food, that's really just greed, and people are getting to the point they don't want to deal with it anymore. I was watching a video last night as I was dozing off going to bed, and it was an hour of people just telling you how they can't live, how it's hard for them to live, how it's hard for them to make ends meet. One Jake said that he was living in North Carolina, and he stated that he made $2,000 a month, and his rent is $2,000, which didn't really make sense to me, because I'm like, well, why the hell would you invest in an apartment if you can't afford the motherfucker? But I'm assuming that he probably bought it when it was cheaper. All right, but even then, you're paying 40 to 45% of your income on living expenses, which is crazy. Like I mentioned, going over like a lease, I was looking at a lease yesterday, and they had all in. This is why ChatGPT, Grok, and all that shit is really good in case you don't have the money for a lawyer, or you could just take the contract to a lawyer, because in like certain these red states, those contracts are written up and they're landlord friendly only, and they don't really benefit the tenant, meaning that they protect themselves, but you, on the other hand, you gotta have your own insurance. Okay, you gotta have your own liability insurance, which is renter's insurance, to protect you and their unit. All right, because they have insurance, but it's to protect their investment, not you. So really, renter's insurance is really to protect you in case like a fire or water damage may transpire. But they have a lot of secret shit in these leases that people don't really read the bold print. such as move out fees, cleaning fees, you know, keys and all this other shit. And I'm just like, goddamn, this ain't nothing but a bunch of legal jargon that's set to trap you up, man. It's like, why even rent a house? Why even buy a house? You know? Hell, you know, you break the lease, then they charge you X, Y, and Z. You know, you have what they called, what's that shit called? But basically, it's a legal term they use. I forgot the name of it, but I was looking it up yesterday. And if they offer you an incentive, and let's just say they offer you $1,000 incentive over a course of 12 months to put on your rent to lower the cost, if you are 1 day late payment, they can rescind on that, and you would be liable to pay the whole goddamn thing back, man. And that's fucking oppression, man. Like, how in the hell is people supposed to live and make ends meet when they're being locked into these binding agreements that's set to destroy them? Like, if you get $1,000 stipend on top of your rent every month, and you want to apply $100 to it every month to lower it by $100, but you still got utilities, and then you still paying water, sewer, and trash on top of that, so you're not even getting the damn deal. Because they got something which is called RUBS or some shit like that, which stands for, basically, it's a utility-based system that they use as a collective of units, and then they would divide the costs between all the tenants in the unit. So if you got a 2-bedroom apartment, then your utility bill will be a lot higher, when in fact the landlord used to cover or the property management used to cover the costs as an incentive. But they stopped doing that back in 2020, and they pushed the customer, or they pushed the cost on the customer now, which is set to maximize the profits of these fucking corporations, man. Because you got corporations and out of town investors buying up all these properties, and they're charging an extensive amount for people to live, and it's some bullshit, man. All right, so people are fed up with it, and eventually they just gonna stop paying their bills. They gonna stop going to work, and people ultimately they gonna stop paying their taxes, because they like, well, why am I paying if it's not gonna benefit me anyway? So basically, you're just the consumer, and you're just throwing away money. And they hoping that you default on it, man. They hoping that you default so they can get all that money out you, man. You know, because the incentive they give you doesn't have a cash value to it. So, but it's all oppression, bro. All right. So anyway, let's go. Richmond. Hold on. Richmond, and let me pick that precept up. It's not the one I want. But Yahweh Shai made a comment about how the rulers or the rich men of the world, they drag you into the courts and so forth like that. This is the book of Psalm 72 and 4. And it says here, he should judge the poor of the people, and he should save the children of the needy, and shall break in pieces the oppressor. Because this system is based on oppression. It's built on the backs of Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, man. All right? And it ain't getting no better for us. Proverbs 28 and 16. It says, the prince wanted understanding, and it says, it's also a great oppressor. It says, but ye have covenants shall prolong his days, man. All right, which is really not the precept I was looking for, but it goes in tandem. Let me go here to the book of Isaiah. No, not Isaiah. It's the book of Psalms. And bear with me, brothers. I'm trying to do like 8 things at once. So Salaki. All right, just bear with me. You know how Jake get impatient. And you take it too long, brother. You got to come on with it. Look, man, we're doing the best we can with what we got. All right. Let's go to the book of Proverbs 28. 28, and I'm gonna start at verses 3. It says, a poor man that oppresseth the poor, because you got Jakes that's oppressive too. Jake oppress the shit out of each other. But like when you go to these Jake-owned restaurants, Jake could charge you more than fucking white man do. And of course, because Jake don't have corporate backing, but still though, nigga, you could sell a 3-piece wing dinner for $8.99. You ain't got to charge another nigga $20 for 3-piece wings, man. That's why a lot of times I don't really eat at these food trucks, because, you know, it's just they overinflate their prices. You you know, and that's the sign of a bad economy. But not only that, that's a sign of people just greed at the end of the day. It's really greed. It says it's like a sweeping rain which leaving no food. All right, going down here to verses 8, it says, he that by usury and unjust gain increases his substance and shall gather it for him that would pity the poor, man. All right, and that's the point I want to make. So anyway, let's play the video a little more and I get a couple of precepts, but here we go.
From this year to last year, so that's a full year, but we keep getting this every month, and it's been since the pandemic in the 3s and the 4s. So we know now that our prices since the pandemic are, I mean, what would you estimate? 40% what we were paying before? For most
easily. And it kind of depends where you live. Yeah, you know, if you're an urban consumer, you're elderly, you're on a lot of drugs or something, probably a lot higher, obviously. So here's a standout. I mean, listen.
And that pandemic was all used to disguise a retail apocalypse. They used that to be able to capitalize on people. That's when a lot of the corporations started buying up a lot of these developments too. You know, now a fucking taco costs your ass $2.50 and they call it Taco Tuesday. Why the hell am I paying for fucking $2 for a goddamn taco? Like, that don't even make sense. A taco should be a dollar at the most. All right, and I'm just being frank.
Big report, the CPI report to tear through, but here's a standout. They told us that for the month of July, heating oil, which is diesel, went down 1.7%. But people who actually had to buy that substance discovered that it started out about $3.20 a gallon at wholesale at the beginning of July, finished at $4.20 a gallon by the end of July. So it's somewhere between, it went up 33% overall, but somehow they did their magic. They massaged the numbers and told us it went down. It obviously didn't go down. So this is the level of prevarication we have to deal with. The BLS constantly massages, lies, gives out political numbers rather than real numbers. And that's just the nature of it. But I think everybody already knows what's true.
So with these price of items up here on the screen, because this Glow Blue Forever says the only thing that's cheap to him is eggs right now. But so here is where we've seen the cumulative price increases. And this was creative planning from Charlie Belilo, who posted this on Twitter. Cumulative price increases in the U.S. over the last 7 years. Pound of coffee up 123%. Pound of ground beef 81%. Dozen eggs up 76%. Gas, utilities, home prices, fuel, oil, auto insurance, electricity, gasoline, transportation, restaurants, family health insurance, shelter, groceries, used cars, and new cars. Like the price of used cars skyrocketing, even like higher than the new cars prices, which is crazy on the resale side of things. And the same is true of homes now. Even the resale home prices have ticked up to a point beyond even new construction homes, which is crazy. I don't know how. I mean, how is this sustainable? Maybe it's a stupid question, Chris, but it's not keeping up with wages. So it sounds to me like we are about to hit a wall.
I think that's right, Clayton. So there's a number of things on there that are missing as well, which really bothers me. So they say shelter is up, 2.3%.
Yeah, going down to verses 12, it says, when righteous men do rejoice, there's a great glory. But when the wicked rise, a man is hidden. Yeah, because the ways of the Lord is hidden in his world. It says, happy is the man that fears always, but he that hearted his heart shall fall into mischief. And as a roaring lion and a rangy bear, so is a wicked ruler over the poor people. Yeah, a fucking tyrant, bro. This man will up your interest rate because you got lower credit. Well, if you got lower credit, sometimes it could come from bad spending habits, of course, but because a person have bad spending habits, they don't give you the right to make it more harder for them, bro. So if you got poor credit, then your loans will be more. You get let's just say, prime example, you're shopping for a car loan and you got bad credit, they'll up the interest rate on you because you're liable to be a risk. But a person that's a risk, it will be common sense to lower the payment so they don't be a risk, so they can successfully pay it off. You would think that's how common sense works. If I know a motherfucker that can't pay me back, or if I know that he's poor, why in the hell would I charge him an extra $100 to put him in a further bind so he don't, so he can default, so he can owe me more money? And if 9 times out of 10, if he ain't paid me the first time, he's not gonna pay me the second time. If I'm upping the price on this guy, man. That's why the scripture say that the rich ruleth over the poor, man. Rich, poor. The rich ruleth over the poor. Proverbs 22:7, it says the rich ruler over the poor and the borrower is servant to the lender. Absolutely. That's why you Jakes, man, you're constantly debt slaves, man. That's why you pay a rent. That's why you pay a tax. That's why you pay an income tax. Why you pay a water tax. Why you pay a bill. Because truly you don't have any substance, man. Like in the kingdom, we're not going to have a fucking water bill, okay? We're going to have our own land. We're going to have our own resources. We ain't going to be paying no damn rent. Like, we ain't gonna be paying no damn chariot. No, the Lord comes to collect his. You got a chariot and you paying 10 shekels of gold a month just for the chariot, and the premium one with insurance 30 shekels, man. That's oppression, man. Hell nah, the Lord ain't gonna have us living like that, man. We gonna truly be free. And I can't wait, man, because this is just madness. You know?
Last year, what's shelter? Well, that's my house. Well, what does that cost? Well, they estimate it and they do these things, but what they don't do is they don't actually ask the question, how much did your property taxes go up? How much did your insurance binder go up on your home? They don't ask those questions in terms of actually having to keep your house. So how much did maintenance costs go up? When you have to replace a roof this year, it's like 50, 100 grand now, where it used to be 20, 30 grand or something, right? So that part never comes into play. And if I want to know what's actually going on with inflation, I go to the Chapwood Index. Ed Butowski has been just tracking the same 200 items in 50 cities. He's done it for decades, and he just adds it up. But he includes taxes and insurance, which are just completely left out. When they say inflation, they always tell you about fuel and eggs and clothes and things like that. But what about taxes and insurance, right? Those are the things that are
Yeah, and that egg shit was crazy back in 2023. That was wild. I was like, wow, I ain't no freaking way in hell, man. But anyway, I'm going to come back and do a part 2 to this. I'm getting ready to be at a destination. All praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Shimi Hawashai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Otherwise, will you edify to the next session. Shalom.